Hi, folks. I did threaten before we broke off for the lockdown that I might actually start making some videos for you. It's taken me a little while to get used to it, and yeah, I'm just going to use Loom. I'm old. I'm not particularly adept at putting together videos, so I found a piece of technology that can do this for me. So this is specifically for my new National 5 class. It's an introduction to National 5 English that I would have sort of delivered in similar fashion if the schools had been opened, but they're not. So this will do. If somehow you found yourself watching this and you're not a pupil in my class, some of it might still apply to you. If you're another pupil in Belmont, some of it definitely will apply. There may be some specific things like dates or specific things that I talk about that you don't need to worry too much about. So I just wanted to take you through what the course was going to be like and talk to you a little bit about some of the tasks that have been set for you on Teams since you bumped up to National 5 English last week. So, what is Nat 5 English? It's, as it says on the slide, I'll read through some of this stuff and add certain things to it. The Nat 5 English course offers you the opportunity to develop and extend a wide range of skills you have developed during your BGE years, such as broad general education, so S1 to S3. The course helps you to develop the ability to listen, talk, read and write, understand, analyse and evaluate texts, create and produce texts, and apply knowledge and understanding of language across your learning and your daily life. So the same kind of stuff that you've been doing in English since day one when you came to Belmont. So other things that you should know. What does the traditional examination for Nat 5 English look like? Obviously, we didn't have an exam this year because of the current circumstances, but this is what it would look like in a normal year. There are 2 exam papers for National 5 English. Reading for understanding, analysis and evaluation, RUAE, or close reading as it used to be known, and critical reading, which I'll get into in a little second. There are 2 additional elements, the portfolio, most people just call it the folio, and also spoken language performance. Now, very briefly on spoken language performance, that can be assessed in a number of different ways. Sometimes people do solo talks, sometimes people do presentations, group discussions. There are numerous ways that I or your teacher could assess you for the spoken language performance, and it does not have to be a solo talk for people who find that prospect terrifying. So don't worry too much about it. So moving on. So the first task, or one of the first tasks that was uploaded for you last week on Teams, was an introduction to understanding questions as part of this reading for understanding, analysis and evaluation, part of the RUAE section of the course. Now, my class in particular, you know that this is kind of what we were building up to before the school had to close in March, so you should have a pretty good grounding of that, and I imagine it will have been done at some point in most third year classes. So it's newspaper articles, reading through them, questions, word choice, imagery, sentence structure, all that kind of stuff that everybody loves. The key information about the exam, you're given a passage of text to read. It'll be non-fiction, roughly 1,000 words. It'll be from a quote-unquote quality newspaper. So in the past, we've had stuff from The Scotsman, The Herald, The Guardian. You get asked about 9 questions. You get 60 minutes to do it, 1 hour, and the questions are worth 30 marks. So one of the things I would say is that it can be about anything, the passage. It really, really can. So here are some of the things that have cropped up in the Nat 5 RUAE over the last couple of years. So, cats in bookshops. Why? I do not know. I guess they thought it was an interesting article about cats and their behaviour in bookshops. McDonald's was the one last year. I was actually scribing for someone during the exam, and I'm not ashamed to admit something that we can't do at the moment. That night, I had to go have a McDonald's. I could only spend so long reading about McDonald's without being desperate for one. Parenting styles. So you might have heard of the term helicopter parenting. So parents are maybe too over the shoulder of their kids all the time. So there was an article about that a couple of years ago. Resilience in sport was one of the articles a few years back, where they were trying to argue how important it is to accept failure, which I think some of the students that year thought was a bit of an unfortunate topic to bring up during an exam, but it was a pretty good article. And also, there was an article about Frozen. Well, it was specifically about Idina Menzel, the singer, and a couple of people I remember coming out of that exam saying, I've never seen Frozen, so I don't think I did very well. And as I said to them, you don't need to have seen Frozen to answer RUE questions on Frozen. You don't need to have ever eaten at McDonald's to answer RUE questions on McDonald's. You don't need to know what helicopter parenting is, and you don't have to have been a cat in a bookshop, I guess, to work out what's going on there. So don't worry too much about the topic. I think one piece of advice that I'll give to my class is that Twitter can be a really useful tool for gathering articles that are appropriate for reading for understanding, analysis and evaluation. So the hashtag N5HRUAE is used by teachers all across Scotland. So when I see an interesting sort of long form piece that I think, that would be something interesting that could possibly, you could make RUAE questions up for that, I'll tweet it with that hashtag N5HRUE, so like that 5 higher, read them for understanding, analysis and evaluation. So if you search for that hashtag N5HRUAE, you'll see loads of stuff on there that you can read at your leisure. I would say that if you are looking to do something daily for English, you could search that hashtag and read those articles one a day, and it should only take you 5-10 minutes to get through the reading of it. And as English teachers say over and over and over again, one of the most valuable things you can do to improve your English skills is read. That's how you build up vocabulary and your understanding of language. So it's definitely a strong recommendation, as well as obviously the very exciting RUAE tasks that are being posted onto your Teams pages. RUE is one of the easier things that we can still teach and practice remotely in the virtual classroom. So the second paper, so you go in for an hour, you read your newspaper article, you answer your 9 questions, you get as many of those 30 marks as you possibly can. You come out, have a break, not a breakdown, just a break, and then you go back in for critical reading. And there are 2 sections to this exam paper. Your Scottish texts, which is just the same as textual analysis, it's called Scottish texts for a reason we'll get into, and your critical essays. So Scottish text first. So your teacher will select one of the Scottish texts. In the past, I've taught the poetry of Norman McCaig and the play Sailmaker by Alan Spence. So there's a long list. You can see it on the SQA website, and teachers will pick perhaps the one that they think is their strength, or the one that they think is going to be the best text for their class to try and get as many marks as they possibly can. So in the exam paper, there is an extract from all of the texts on that list that the SQA have created, and you'll have studied one of them with your teacher, so you're guaranteed a set of questions on the text that you have studied. So if, like my class last year, had they been able to do their exam, they would have had an extract from the play Sailmaker and some questions to answer on that. What you don't know before the exam is what the extract is going to be, so they wouldn't know what part of the play was going to come up. They would have studied it with me over a number of months, and they would hopefully be ready for just about anything. If you're doing a poet, you'll study 6 of their poems, and one of them will turn up in the exam. And I think that the poetry of Norman McCaig is very likely to be what I'm going to be doing with my new 4th year, who are probably the people actually watching this. You must be able to answer questions on the extract, but also there's a final question, which is known as the commonality question, and it asks you to compare the extract with other aspects of that Scottish text. So, for example, if you were doing the poetry of Norman McCaig, you would have your extract poem in the exam, and the last question would ask you to make some comparisons with the other 5 poems that you'd studied, and that is you've done from memory and your knowledge of it. If it's a play like Sailmaker, it's you take something from the extract and compare that to other parts of the play. So we'll get into that as we do it later. So you get 20 marks maximum for your efforts there. So as I said before, Sailmaker is quite a common text that's used. It's one of the more popular ones. And the poems of Norman McCaig, 6 of them. Those are the 2 that I've used over the years. Some people might do different ones for National 5, and they've just brought, well, not just, but recently, Jekyll and Hyde has been added in. So I know some people did that last year. So, Scottish set text. Now, the critical essay, the key information for your critical essay is, in that section of this paper, you're given a selection of essay questions, and you have to choose one of them and write a critical essay on one of the literature, media, or language texts that you have studied as part of the course across the year. You don't bring a copy of it into the exam, and your essay is marked out of 20. So usually you'll study 1 or 2 texts with your teacher, and you'll go into the exam knowing that you're going to write a critical essay on one of those, or just one if you've only studied one. And you have to adapt your knowledge to the question that is set and write your essay. Now, that's the part where people usually get a little bit panicked. If I do this kind of thing in class, people are like, I'll never be able to go in and write an essay off the top of my head. You will be, because people have said that to me every year, and people pull it off. People get there in the end with practice. So don't worry too much about that. So in the past, things that I've taught, John Steinbeck's novel of Mice and Men, which again, I think I'm going to use this year with my new National 5 class. It's a classic. It is a great book. It's not very long. It's quite popular. And if you are in my new S4 class and you were looking for something to read during this lockdown period, fingers crossed, hopefully we'll get to read it together at some point in a physical classroom as opposed to a virtual one. But it's readily available if you wanted to read that at some point. Other things I've done, I taught the film Whiplash 2 years ago for critical essay, so I tend to switch between short stories, books and films for the essay. You can't use the same type of text as your set text. So if I do poetry for Scottish set text like Norman McCaig, I can't do any poems for your essay, if that makes sense. So if I did Sailmaker, the play, for Scottish set text, I couldn't do a play for your critical essay. So short stories, novels and films is where I've tended to head. But again, that'll be different for different teachers. So the portfolio then, this is the thing that I wanted to talk to you quite specifically about just now, because along with the close reading, this is the other element of the course that we have decided is the most straightforward thing to adapt for home learning, and it's something that you would be working on independently across the year anyway. So it makes sense during the time where we have to be a little bit more independent with our learning and education to do this. So key information, I'll go through quite quickly. Your portfolio is 2 pieces of your writing that is submitted to the SQA to be marked a few weeks before your exam. Each of the 2 essays is worth 15 marks. They're added on to the mark you get in your exam to give you a total out of 100. One of the pieces should be what they call broadly creative, and the other piece should be broadly discursive. So you would normally do a little bit of work on this in class, but a lot of it is a sort of extended independent task that you research, write and redraft at home across the year. So in terms of time, people are usually working on these from about end of May, start of June, right the way through to the submission date, which is usually in March. So time here is our friend. In the exam, obviously, your RUAE paper, 60 minutes. Your critical reading paper, where you do your Scottish text and your critical essay, 90 minutes, an hour and a half. But you have a lot of time, potentially, to dedicate to getting your portfolio right. So, what does broadly creative mean? That's not the one we're going to be focusing on very much in May and June, but I'll tell you about it just now anyway. So this can be a piece of personal reflective writing in which you think and write about something in your life that has affected you in a big way. So, bit of personal writing, straightforward, lots of personality, and you shining through in the words is what we're looking for there. It can also be a piece of creative writing, so you create an original idea, short story, the opening of a novel, part of a script, a poem, for example. I would say that the Most people tend to go for personal reflective writing. I think the creative writing can be a little bit tougher. It's not necessarily everybody's natural strength. And one of the things to keep in mind if you're thinking about heading down the creative route is we're not looking for, the whole plot of a blockbuster film in 1,000 words. It's really about the quality of the writing. So for those in my S3 class, those creative writing activities that we did this year in kind of January and February, that was me kind of trying to lay the groundwork for this type of writing. It's not so much about plot, it's, they're really looking for something descriptive and atmospheric and interesting. So you don't need to squeeze, no Hollywood Fast and Furious plots in 1,000 words. That's not what we're after here. So, broadly discursive. Now, this is the piece that we're going to look at in May and June during this lockdown period. So, broadly discursive, what does that mean? So this is a piece of writing that is a mixture of research, facts and opinions on a topic of your choice. And I want to say this straight away, you have a lot of breadth here for your topic choice. You're going to be spending, a big part of an academic year working on this. So you really should pick something that you're interested in. Now, you can, for inspiration, and if you're getting stuck, you can go Google discursive essay ideas or persuasive essay ideas, argumentative essay ideas, and you'll get hundreds of ideas, lists, 1,000 items long, telling you, like, you could write about this, you could write about this, and those are really useful to get your mind going. But the best ones are when the person picks something that they genuinely find interesting. Okay, so one of the most common ones that we would sometimes suggest avoiding is maybe something like animal rights, because people have been writing kind of generic animal rights essays for, decades. And if you're not really interested and you're not really that passionate about animal rights, that can sometimes come through in your writing. So, pick something that interests you. You're going to be spending a lot of time doing some work on it. So you don't want to pick something that you're going to get bored of really quickly. So you'll deal with research, information, ideas. It can be argumentative. So you can do sort of a for and against essay. It can be persuasive, where you have a very particular view on an issue that you would like to share with your reader and try to persuade them of. It can be a more straightforward report for a particular purpose of a person or an event or something of historical significance. So the thing I wanted to say to you about the task is that this week I'm going to be putting up some reading material for my class. 3 documents that I'm going to put on Teams that I'd like you to have a little look at. The first document is called, handily, Read Me First. So in that, it kind of gives you a breakdown of what it is we're going to be doing in May and June. Now, there are some dates there, because these documents are being used for all the classes. Pay attention to the dates that I put as your submission dates in Teams, not necessarily what's in that document. I might give you a little bit longer for something. I maybe don't want to overwhelm you with too much at once. So just keep an eye on the actual Teams hand-in date and not necessarily what's in the document. That can be a bit of a pain. I apologise for that, but it's usually for your benefit. It usually means I'm giving you a wee bit more time. So obviously, if you need to clarify, send me a message. So read me first. Then there are 2 booklets. One of them is about argumentative essays, so a preparation pack. Sorry, I'm not editing these, so mistakes are going to be in here. A preparation pack for argumentative essay writing. So that's like a for and against essay. And there's tasks in there for you to do once you've kind of thought of your topic. And you can go through these tasks and it might help you develop some ideas. You might not use everything from these tasks to help you write it, but the tasks themselves will be really helpful. And there's also the third document is a persuasive writing preparation pack. So where you're trying to persuade your reader of your particular viewpoint on a topic, and there's tasks and techniques and things to help you write a really good persuasive writing task. So the kind of key thing for this week, for the first submission date, is your choice of topic. So letting me know what you think at this point you're going to write about. Now, do people change their minds a few months in? Of course, it happens. Sometimes world events happen, and people are really passionate and interested in them, and they want to write about those. So it's fine to change your mind. Okay, some teachers might not be happy with me saying that, but it is fine to change your mind. So, but usually if you've done a lot of work on something, it's worth sticking with it and seeing it through to the end. So what I'm looking for in the first submission is what you think your topic's going to be and what type of essay you're going to go for. Are you going to go for argumentative or are you going to go for persuasive? And in that first submission as well, maybe looking for you to have tried out a couple of the tasks on either argumentative or persuasive. Now, you can pick one right away and go, I'm definitely doing argumentative. I'm definitely doing a for and against essay. Or you might say, nah, I'm going to do persuasive and I want to try and persuade someone. You might try out tasks from both and decide later. Like, that's okay too. You know, we're pretty open to how you want to make this work for you. But as I said before, something personal. Now, there is, because I'm also terribly modern, there's also a hashtag for this. How embarrassing. Hashtag Folio Inspo, FOLIOINSPO, Folio Inspiration. Obviously, shortened to Folio Inspo. So, in the packs themselves, there are suggestions of things to go for in terms of topics and things to maybe avoid because they're done too often and maybe they are kind of a bit blunt now. Like I was saying before, like animal rights. If you can't say something up to date or new about it, you know, you don't want to be writing or submitting a folio on animal rights in 2020 that could have been written in 2010. You know, you want something maybe a bit more personalised and up to date. So I looked on Twitter this morning and made a note of the various things. So I went on for hashtag Folio Inspo. I looked up the hashtag, and these were some of the things that had been posted by teachers and pupils of suggestions for discursive folios, so argumentative or persuasive. So I'm just going to list them. Greta Thunberg was someone who is a somewhat controversial figure in some ways, and controversial topics are usually, you know, pretty good seeds for interesting essays. The purposes of museums was an idea. Maybe that's something you're interested in. Robotic medical surgeries and what the future of medicine could be like for people. Are films and books aimed at teenagers representing a really negative and unrealistic expectation of what romance is like? So, for example, you know, is Twilight sending a bad message to teens about what good relationships and healthy relationships are like? Interesting thing to read about. The influence of social media on elections, fireworks sales. You know, should we ban the sale of fireworks in supermarkets? The smacking ban in Scotland. Parents and how they track their kids' phones. Like, should parents be allowed to track what happens on a child's phone at all? It's a debate. Period poverty. Love Island and whether it promotes diversity in its cast. Letting traditional media like newspapers die. Don't try and save them. They're a thing of the past. Let them die. Pros and cons there. Movie sequels are getting worse. So there's lots of different things that you can write about. And as I said, the more interested you are in it, the better. If you want to ping a few ideas to me for your folio, then by all means do, and I'll let you know which one I think sounds the most interesting. So, last thing, I think, just some notes on the portfolio. So this was this is like the terms and conditions bit when you're watching a TV show and there's a competition or something. They're like, this is the stuff we have to say. So I'm just going to read this as it is. As per SQA instructions, the pieces of writing must be your own work. If you submit pieces that if you submit pieces that have been written in whole or in part by someone else, your entire award in English will be withheld, and your awards in other subjects may also be in jeopardy. So, no plagiarism. Don't plagiarise. The SQA arrangements for National 5 English permit reasonable assistance in choosing your topics and suggestions for improving your first draft. Teachers and tutors are not allowed to rephrase for you, nor to provide key ideas or a plan, nor to correct errors in spelling and punctuation. There are no restrictions on using spell checkers and dictionaries. So basically, we're allowed to help, but not so much that it's no longer really your piece of work. So we help you and then take the stabilisers off the bike, and you hopefully ride on and write a fantastic essay and don't crash into a bush or something. So that's that bit out of the way. So just a quick reminder of what I've said to you. This is a lovely pie chart here that breaks down the three elements of the course. So RUE, 30%. Portfolio, 30%. That's your discursive piece and your creative piece. Discursive piece is what we're focusing on in May and June, and RUE is also what we're focusing on in May and June. And then 40% critical reading, so 20 marks for your critical essay and 20 marks for the questions on your set text. So handily presented there for people who need a bit more of a visual aid to see how the course is broken down. So expectations for success. These haven't really changed given the situation that we find ourselves in. They're still the same. Timekeeping. That's a skill for learning life and work. Okay, so keep an eye on deadlines for homework tasks, portfolio drafts, your prelims, any timed assessments that are happening in school when we, fingers crossed, are all back together. And obviously the final exam. You don't want to wake up late on that day. So timekeeping, very, very important. Communication, another skill for learning life and work. So check Teams regularly. Show my homework if your teacher is still using Show my homework. Check your email for any notifications, and check in with me if there's anything troubling you, particularly about the work or something that you're not too sure about. Questions are fine. Post them in the Teams, and once I've seen them, I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. The last one is commitment. And what's written in here is that success is not contained within the timetable classes alone. We don't have any timetable classes right now, but that still remains true. So check out support and study, work independently, do some extra reading. Reading is your friend, friends. Okay, I can't stress that any more than I already have, and you'll know from your fond memories of classes how much I like to bang on about how important it was to do reading. That's why I made you do that book report, to try and make sure that everybody read a book in 2020 before we moved into Nat 5. So more than ever just now, your kind of independent commitment, and you're trying to make this work for you in whatever situation you find yourself in during this lockdown, doing a little bit each day or having an assigned time to do a little bit of English work. That's all we can really ask. And if you're having any issues, obviously, you just need to get in touch and let me know. So, we'll speak soon. The reason I'm wearing this hat is because I can only dream of having hair like that Bitmoji of me over there. It's not pretty under this. It really isn't pretty.